No mai ki Kaupapa On The Couch. He Māoritanga te kaupapa o te rānei. What does family mean to you? For me, it's kind of like, Mum, I'm hungry.
There's fruit in the bowl. Well, then you're not that hungry then, are you? What?
Oh my God, what? Get out. Oh, yuck, that stinks. Mum! Oh. Have you ever thought about how there are different definitions of family? We live in Aotearoa, New Zealand, a British colony overwhelmingly ruled by Western thought and practices. But have you ever wondered how Britain's own history influences the things we see as normal today? From about the year 43 AD to the 5th century, Britain was at war with and settled in many parts by the Roman Empire. Within Roman culture, the family unit consisted of the father and his wife and children who were legally classed as his chattels, or his property. The Vikings, who also settled in Britain, eventually converted to Christianity, and the Bible is all about the husband as the head of the family and the wife as his subordinate. Ephesians says, "Wives should submit in everything to their husbands." So by the time the British arrived on our shores, this idea of a family unit being made up of one man, the boss, one woman, his inferior, and their children, and maybe some elderly relatives, was pretty well entrenched. Add to that the attitude that children should be seen and not heard, and that any sex before marriage or for reasons other than making babies is evil, and you've got a pretty rigid set of rules about what a family looks like and how it should behave. So what do you think they thought when they arrived here in Aotearoa and saw that the Māori family unit was completely different from theirs? For one, unless you were puhi, a young high-ranking woman that was required to stay a virgin for an arranged marriage, young people were expected to have a few sexual relationships before settling down with someone, and there's kōrero coming to light that suggests same-sex relationships and gender fluidity totally normal. There was no stigma attached to sexuality whatsoever, something our Victorian ancestors took care of forthwith.
Shame. Shame. Oh, shame.
So then you've got child rearing, which was done, you guessed it, by the whole village. In English, we have names like auntie, uncle, cousin, second cousin that describe very distinct roles within a family structure. There's a prescribed distance in the Western second cousin relationship, for example. But in many iwi, and in fact a lot of Indigenous cultures around the world, those distinctions don't really exist to the same extent. Your parents, aunts and uncles may have the same responsibilities towards you, your siblings and your cousins equally. And within your generation, there are roles to play depending on if you're older or younger. Let's take two of the te reo Māori words for siblings. A lot of you will be familiar with the terms tuakana and teina. They're commonly used to describe mentoring systems in schools and universities, for instance, with tuakana being the older mentor and teina being the younger mentee. They're also the names for a younger or older sibling of the same sex. These aren't necessarily two different meanings. Mentor and sibling mean much the same thing in this instance. In your whānau, your tuakana are responsible for some of your childcare and for teaching you your roles and responsibilities as they were taught by their older siblings and cousins. You in turn pass those lessons on to your teina. Then you have concepts like whāngai, which doesn't have an exact equivalent in English. It's commonly described as a practice where a child is raised by someone in their family other than their birth parents. But this is an imperfect description. Many iwi saw children as having heaps of parents. This is why whāngai is less raising a family member's child as your own and more acknowledgement that the child is already part of the wider family's responsibility. Obviously, your whakapapa and your direct bloodline is very important to your history and identity, but the day-to-day of clothing, protecting and feeding someone, whāngai also means to feed, could be performed by any family member. Again, whāngai doesn't have two distinct meanings here. Feeding someone and caring for someone are one and the same. These are complex concepts. Whānau is a flexible and nuanced term. It doesn't just equate to the English word for family. Traditionally, 3 generations under one roof, sprawling out sideways to aunties and uncles and second and third cousins was the norm. Today, whānau to you might just mean you and your parents and your siblings. It's not just to do with size. There are spiritual aspects to it. Some people say their whānau goes from the youngest member to the oldest person remembers. And many whānau live surrounded by the stories and pictures of their long dead ancestors and include all of them in their definition of whānau, meaning decisions in the present are still made with them in mind. Large families were practical because everyone had a role to play. But now that we have capitalism and a cash economy, whānau isn't necessarily about everyone taking on responsibilities that will contribute to feeding, housing and protecting everyone. But there's still echoes of that in most Māori whānau. Living for long periods with relatives, spending more time with your cousins and siblings than your friends, sharing rooms at special events with lots of family members like you would on the marae. There's more emphasis on individualism than ever, but it's still about upholding the mana of the whole family in whatever way you can. E hara taku toa I te toa takitahi, engari he toa takitini taku toa. My strength does not come from my individuality, my strength comes from many. Whakapapa, as we all know, is the organising principle. Our iwi and hapu give context to our place in the world. But our whānau, for better or for worse, make us who we are. The best thing about it is no 2 whānau look the same. And as the Western definition of family also evolves to include same-sex and gender-diverse parents, single parents, families with no kids, chosen families. As a society, we move closer to the values of whānau and away from the time where we were treated as someone's property. How is your whānau different or special? Is it massive or is it small? Let me know in the comments below. Ka kite anō e hoa mā, that's it from us here at Kaupapa On The Couch.